The morning mist hung low over the Kepler 442b settlement when Marcus Chun first heard the screaming. He dropped his hydroponics tablet and sprinted toward the sound, his boots splashing through puddles left by the previous night's storm. The colony's universal translator crackled to life in his ear, converting the alien cries into desperate pleas for help. Through the clearing, he saw them, a family of Velkari huddled at the edge of the swollen crimson river. The father's iridescent blue skin had paled to an almost translucent white, while the mother's normally graceful tentacle-like appendages writhed in panic. Between them, pointing at the churning waters, was their youngest daughter, no more than 8 cycles old by human standards. Marcus followed her gaze and his heart sank. A smaller Velkari child, she couldn't have been more than 4, was being swept downstream by the violent current. Her tiny form disappeared and reappeared between the foam-capped waves, her distinctive purple skin barely visible against the dark water. The Velkari were excellent swimmers in calm waters. Their webbed digits and streamlined bodies evolved for their homeworld's gentle seas. But this torrent was different, a product of the seasonal storms that turned the usually placid river into a death trap. The adults knew they couldn't survive such turbulence, their hollow bones too fragile. For the crushing force of the rapids, Marcus didn't hesitate. He shed his jacket and dove headfirst into the icy water. The current immediately seized him, slamming his shoulder against the submerged rock. Pain shot through his arm, but he fought against the flow, his denser human bones and muscle mass giving him advantages the Velkari lacked. He'd been a lifeguard back on Earth before the colony program, and those instincts kicked in now. Spotting the child's purple form ahead, Marcus angled himself downstream, using the current's momentum rather than fighting it directly. The water roared in his ears, drowning out everything else. A fallen tree branch caught his leg, opening a gash, but he pushed through the pain. The little girl went under just as Marcus reached her. Without thinking, he plunged beneath the surface, his lungs burning as he groped blindly in the murky water. His fingers found something soft, her arm, and he pulled her against his chest, kicking desperately toward what he hoped was the surface. They broke through together, the child's gills fluttering weakly as she struggled to process the oxygen pour. Water! Marcus locked his arm around her tiny torso and began swimming one-handed toward the bank, fighting every meter against the relentless current. The riverbank seemed impossibly far away. Marcus's muscles screamed in protest, his vision beginning to blur from oxygen debt. The child in his arms had gone limp, her usually vibrant skin now a sickly gray. He was losing her. That's when he saw the rope. The older Velkari daughter had somehow fashioned a lifeline from salvaged cargo netting, her parents holding the other end as she threw it with remarkable accuracy. Marcus caught it with his free hand, feeling his shoulder joint pop from the sudden jerk. But it held, and slowly, agonizingly, the family pulled them both to safety. Marcus collapsed on the muddy bank, still clutching the unconscious child. Mother rushed forward, her medical knowledge evident, as she began administering what looked like CPR adapted for Velkari physiology. After several terrifying moments, the little girl coughed up river water and began breathing normally. The father approached Marcus, who was still gasping on the ground, his human lungs working overtime to replenish his oxygen debt. In broken English, the alien spoke words that would haunt Marcus forever. You are blessed by the eternal tide. No mortal being could survive such waters. You are God divine. I'm just human, Marcus wheezed, accepting a thermal blanket from a gathering crowd of colonists. Anyone would have done the same. But the Velkari family saw it differently. In their culture, the Crimson River during storm season was considered the domain of Velthur, their god of death and impossible trials. No living being was supposed to survive its wrath, let alone save another from its depths. To them, Marcus had not just rescued their daughter, he had conquered death itself. Spread quickly through the Velkari community. Within days, Marcus found offerings left at his habitat door, precious stones from their homeworld, intricately woven tapestries, and most unervingly, small shrines with his photograph at the center. The child's parents, Zixal and Morent, began visiting daily. They would kneel outside his dwelling, speaking in their melodic language to what they believed was a divine being walking among mortals. The translator rendered their words as prayers, asking for blessings on their family and protection for their community. Marcus tried repeatedly to explain that he was just a maintenance engineer who happened to be a strong swimmer. He showed them his medical records, his completely ordinary human DNA profile, even invited them to witness his very mortal need for coffee each morning. Nothing worked. The situation escalated when other Valkyrie families began arriving from distant settlements, making pilgrimages to see the holy savior of the waters. They came seeking miracles, healing, and divine guidance. Marcus's small habitat became an unofficial temple. "This is getting out of hand," Marcus confided to Dr. Sarah Kim, the colony's xenobiologist. "I'm not a god. I'm not even particularly religious myself." Sarah smiled sympathetically. "To them, you are. You perform what they consider an impossible feat, motivated by pure compassion. In their belief system, that kind of selfless sacrifice is literally divine. But I was just helping a drowning kid." "Exactly. And that's what makes you human, Marcus. You see a person in danger, you act. No hesitation, no calculation of risk versus reward." To the Valkyrie, who are naturally cautious and analytical, that kind of instant heroism seems supernatural. 3 months later, Marcus still couldn't walk through the settlement without being approached by Valkyrie seeking blessings. He'd given up trying to convince them of his mortality. Instead, he focused on using his unexpected influence for good, advocating for better safety measures around the river, promoting cultural exchange programs, and helping resolve disputes between human and Valkyrie colonists. The little girl he'd saved, Silara, had recovered completely. She would run up to him with the fearless joy of childhood, apparently unaware that her family considered him divine. To her, he was simply the nice human who played games and shared his fruit rations. Standing by the now peaceful Crimson River one evening, Marcus reflected on the strange turn his life had taken. He'd come to Kepler 442b to maintain atmospheric processors and live quietly among the stars. Instead, he'd become an accidental deity to an entire species. The irony wasn't lost on him. In trying to prove his humanity, he'd only demonstrated what made humans special to these aliens: their willingness to risk everything for a stranger, to dive headfirst into impossible situations because it was simply the right thing to do. Perhaps, Marcus thought as Silara's laughter echoed across the water, that was divine enough.